If y'all were to listen to probably the music or the song, like, okay, cool, it's produced by Timbaland, but how does that work, right? Okay, let's say the music is really, really good, but now what does that look like? How do we go to those concerts? How does that artist, actually make money for Timberland? You know what I mean? So I think in concept, in theory, it seems cool, but in reality, I don't know how it works. What's up? What's up? What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Autonomous Income. I'm your co-host, Deuce Noble.
And I'm your co-host DJ. What's going on today, Deuce?
Hey man, another day in the world of tech and AI, and we got a few things to talk about. Big in the news, WWDC had just
Yes.
happened, which is, also
What
known
the
as
hell? What the hell?
iOS's developer conference. I can't remember what the WW stands for. Developer conference? Where's
Worldwide
Waddle?
Developer Conference.
Yeah, no, it's Worldwide Developer Conference was just held. So we have some news from that. We also have some updates about a few gaming things. Microsoft and Asus has announced the XBot Ally handheld. So we're going to kind of dive a little bit into that, what that looks like. And what else you got for us, DJ?
We have to talk about that new music artist that's not human. Timbaland. Timbaland's new artist.
That's a
Basically,
good
yeah,
one.
top
That'll be a
five.
good
We
one.
gotta,
Yeah,
we gotta touch on that. And then also, yeah, you mentioned talking about the Microsoft new hardware that's coming out, and also the Switch 2 just launched as well. So
that's
there's
right.
been just a lot of conversations around all the devices and specifically the Microsoft devices, how they have AI chips that are in those directly baked in. So like we've said before, we feel like a lot of the new devices are going to come with these AI optimized chips that are going to be on them, and we'll just see how that kind of unfolds with the usage on those things. But yeah, what do you want to start off with today, Deuce?
And of course, let's go ahead and dive into WWDC. So
Yeah.
this event just happened, and there's been a lot of things that was really cool that Apple announced, but a lot of things that I feel fell flat. Where do you want to start? Let's go ahead and look. Pick your poison, DJ. What is the one thing you want to start with WWDC?
Yeah, man. So with WWDC this year, I just feel like, and I like technology, right? So of course, inherently, I like Apple, but I also like Google. You and myself, we've been one of the ones that I've always had like both devices, right? We've had the latest Android devices, like all the Pixels, and what was it called before Pixels? The Nexus
The Nexus
devices. Yeah.
phones.
So we've been around. We're just fans of technology, but I just say all that to say that this year it just didn't feel. I just didn't get that same feeling. Like we had GDC, like Google's a developer conference not too long ago, and there's a lot of excitement about that. Even Microsoft Build, there's a lot of excitement about that because I guess they're so into all the new tech that's coming out, AI agents and all these things, and the capabilities that they're
Right.
enabling with their software. Honestly, I mean, like the big thing at WWDC this year was just like their new design material, and they went with glass, right? So that's like their whole new spiel now is just like their major redesign. And of course the naming convention changed. So now every 26. So iOS 26, Mac OS 26, and Watch 26, they wanted to get in line with that. So they didn't
Right.
have a bunch of different names. So that makes sense. But I don't know. What about you, Deuce? Like, what'd you kind of take? What was your take on it?
Man, I would say this. I would say, so a couple of things that I like that they did with the design, kind of keeping things copacetic and in line. It makes sense just for how their ecosystem works. It is a little triggering because it's like, all right, man, y'all say every year, hey, all new cutting edge design or
Every year.
whatever,
Every year.
right? Every year. But I do like how they're, I guess, making everything look a certain way, right? Even with the Apple Glass and a few things with the watch and the iPad and the MacBooks and all that, right? Very, very cool. However, the big thing, the big splash, what they've been, touting around Apple Intelligence, it kind of fell flat for me. So I'm just like, I don't know. It wasn't the, I don't think they lived up to enough hype that is going in the business that they are in right now. I feel like Apple has a lot more at stake versus not keeping up with everything that's going on with the other companies, OpenAI, Google, and even Microsoft with in Anthropic as far as they want to coin Apple Intelligence with their AI phase, but it kind of fell a little bit flat to me, and I don't know. I just feel like Apple, yeah,
I
I
mean,
got
I
a
don't
little
think
bit room for improvement.
yeah, I don't think they're in trouble or anything. They still, have
Right,
great hardware. You know what I mean? And like, I think people feel that those devices, for whatever reason, I know globally, I think Android is still ahead as far as the whole globe. I think, they still have the big market, largest part of the market share globally. But I just think, here in the States, people feel
Yeah.
that Apple's more secure and all those other things, how they
I
handle.
feel like, but with that said, I feel like Apple is understanding their position, and you could say they're far from being an AI leader, but they are really securing their spot as far as being a hardware and software leader in, their devices and what's going on. So I think that's kind of where they're touting their position,
Yeah.
which is pretty good, right? It makes sense. So
Yeah, I think they're
yeah,
definitely leaning into there. But I mean, with them, really, it's just like at this day, everybody's touting their software, specifically AI, right? So they're leaning into that. And I think Apple did probably take the smarter position this year instead of going like they did last year, where it was all Apple Intelligence and they were over promised and under delivered. Because there's still stuff that hasn't been delivered now, where they're talking about some of the Siri improvements. So I think that with their approach this year was just like, hey, let's go with material design, visual redesign, and all these other things, and make things cohesive. Still let people know we're doing a little bit with Apple Intelligence, and we're kind of still unraveling that and rolling that out. But here's some other cool things. So there was some cool things that they announced, specifically like with Spotlight, for Mac OS users. They made a lot of improvements there, and just a handful of other ones. But it just like nothing really stood out, because they did have the call screening that they announced, which is pretty cool. But like, Google has been doing that. I don't know. That's probably 10 years ago when we watched that, where they had like some kind of similar feature. It may not have been 10 years ago, but it was a while ago when they had call screening. But it's good. The software is kind of catching up to there. They did have some cool updates in messaging with the chat bubbles, like basically where it'll have polls and, that'll automatically enable there. You can do certain backgrounds now in messages. So, a couple cool things. It just didn't, to me, it didn't have that
right.
one big wow factor for me. So.
No, I agree. Like I said, I feel like the design focus was a smart play, at least this year. But like I said, a lot of their changes will be minor. So I just feel that, a lot of it was more, like I said, just design focus for the developer side. It's one of those things that's an aesthetically pleasing conference they had this year that, consumers will enjoy, especially for keeping the ecosystem if they have, Apple TV, an iPad, Mac OS, right? They have a watch. Everything will be copacetic, right? Even Apple CarPlay, they're keeping that all the same stream with the iOS or the OS, excuse me, 26. But yeah, I mean, all in all, if I were to grade it, I'd give it a B minus.
Yeah, and that's
I,
some people like if you went out there on X, Twitter or whatever y'all want to call it these days. But yeah, they, I mean, some people were dragging it. They were really dragging it because they were just like it's kind of boring. It was lackluster. For me, I mean, I like technology. I think it's cool what they did. And I do think it's smart. So I see what they're kind of do, like just really sticking true to what they have, and maybe the material design, like the new design that they have. But that even caused some heat also, because the fact that people are just like, man, this lacks contrast, and they were comparing it to Windows. Was it Windows Vista, where they yeah, like they
yeah.
compared, because Windows Vista also had like clear kind of thing that they try to do, and that was one of Windows' worst
I
releases, right? I
remember.
mean, or worst rated.
Yeah.
Apple's usually really good at design, right? I mean, like they were the first ones to really come out with like a good design language across their platform. So maybe just more people have to have it, and I'm sure we'll all get used to it. But I think it was basically one of those you touch my cheese moments going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, like I said, it's a cool show out for what they had. But at the end of the day, we'll see what they have up their sleeve in October when they announce their new devices.
New
Right?
devices. That's right. When that hardware
That's
comes out.
that's that's like that's one of the big ones for Apple, just because I think they're really moving into that hardware space because
Well,
I
I mean,
mean
that's their bread and butter,
iPhone,
right? I mean, yeah,
right,
hardware is
right.
their bread
Like, I
and
mean, well,
butter.
not just iPhone, just the MacBooks, everything. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll see. But speaking of devices, and we want to go into that, let's go on to this new device Microsoft has announced. Microsoft and Asus have announced two Xbox Ally handhelds with new Xbox full screen experience. So they have the white ROG. That one ships with AMD's Ryzen Z2A processor, which is one of their AI processors. And this thing is loaded, right? I'm excited to. I want to get my hands on one ASAP, bro. Like I don't know about you, but some of the new gaming stuff coming out, fire.
Yeah, man. I saw a lot of people got their hands on it already. I can't wait to get my hands on mine, just to kind of test those out. But essentially the two devices, and I think the one major difference is one has upgraded USB-C ports on the top to where like it can extend out basically like its screen, to an external monitor or charger. And I'll come back with the official details and all those other things. We just wanted to kind of just gloss over it really just to get with you. But there's not really huge swaths differences because I do believe it's the same chip, same screen, and all those other things. But there's something minor differences between the white and the black version. But once we get our
I
hands
mean,
on it,
well, the main difference, of course, the white designed for 720p gaming,
yeah.
and the black one a little bit more powerful. It targets 900p and 1080p gaming on the go, which is respectively insane, right?
Which I mean, yeah, either one of those will look good. But from what I've seen right now, the OS, having that Xbox OS because Windows still baked in there, but it's like having an Xbox OS kind of like really focused on there. It seems to run a lot smoother. It's dedicated, so that way that hardware can really work really well in tandem with the software to make it have a smooth experience. But yeah, I mean, like I'm liking everything so far. The reviews seem good from individuals that are using it. Some pros and cons and whatnot, but they also I just like the third party already. So it's not only your Xbox games, but they also have, I believe they have Steam or yeah, they have Steam available for you to go through that catalog as well. So that really makes it pretty sweet to have that as you can have both.
What this reminds me of is how Google at the time was a little early when it came to the game with Stadia. And because right now, I mean, you're going to have access to these handhelds to Xbox Cloud Gaming, right? And remote play to an Xbox console, which essentially, Stadia was, along those lines and had some of the games. So Google was a little too early for that, right? So now we have these handhelds where you can go anywhere,
Yeah, that
and
was a sore
it's
spot, man, because we both, Stadia was it was
man.
going well for me. I saw the reviews and had the Foundation series and all of those other things, and I
I
just thought
had
it
the
was
fact.
amazing.
Listen, I still got my controller.
I still
Look.
have mine. Yeah, I think they came and went, and I remember them on the keynote saying we're gonna stick, for the long run. We're gonna stay with this, and
Man, listen, because look, they had Madden, they had everything I needed. I was like, why would I not? I was playing Destiny on my Stadia.
yeah, man. My kids were playing Destiny at school, and people were asking because they were using their school Chromebooks because you could stream. You didn't need the hardware, so you could have like this, low powered Chromebook and still play. And I told them, of course, I was just like, really? But they said, they're at lunch and everything. But
Yeah, right.
yeah, I was like, bro,
There was
that's
a
nice.
third period,
You know what
Miss
I'm saying? Yeah, get on. I was
Branson's
just like,
calculus
yeah.
class.
I was like, as long as y'all are passing, I'm not gonna trip. But but yeah. Either way, yeah, I'm excited to to kind of test it out. Like so. One thing, Deuce, I would ask you: are you a handheld person? Like, because here's the thing, that people have cell phones that they play video games on now. So, like, I know handhelds are coming. There's a Steam Deck, there's Switch. If you want to kind of put the Switch in the category with this Switch 2 that just came out as well. Now you have the Microsoft kind of jumping in there. So, what is your take on these types of
I think
devices?
uh I think handhelds, I wouldn't say like making a comeback. I just think they're making a little bit of resurgence, right? And I remember, I mean, you could go all the way back to, Game Boy days, but I remember when the PSP kind of changed the game and the scope, the landscape, of those handhelds and taking devices and internet everywhere, right? I like the handheld piece because obviously it's different than your cell phone. Your cell phone can do these things and they have those controller bridges you can put your phone in, right? I mean, I like it. I like the fact that, hey, I can just pick up my Xbox Ally, play it here, and then, when I get home, pick it right back up on, my Xbox if I wanted to, right?
Just yeah. I mean,
I
I
do like
see.
that experience.
Yeah, and I think maybe I don't know the target audience. Of course, they have data. All these people have data that people are using these because I think Steam Deck did really well. I know some friends that bought it, but I guess me personally is just like if I have my phone on me all the time and it can play games, pretty well. Like, do I really want to? And I don't really extensively play games a lot on my cell phone, but I will play on my PC or like a console, right? Like I'll do that, but I don't really do it mobily. I guess because either if I'm driving I'm trying to figure out the use case. Maybe if you're flying or something like that, but usually I'm just
You're
like listening
flying,
to
you're
something.
riding,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
take public transportation.
So maybe,
It's
yeah.
one of those things, so the other thing too is like your phone, there's just a slight difference in how powerful it is, right, compared to these handheld devices. And just keeping up with that in some of these games. It's really, really interesting. However, like, I don't know, you might be, taking your kids to practice or something and, pull it out real quick to play a game while they're doing whatever, right? So
I mean, to be
it all
honest, I
depends
guess
on
I
where you're
think about like,
at.
okay, so imagine you seeing somebody out, you see a dude, like a grown man, if he pulls this out and he starts gaming on it, like, it's just really that for me. So, I mean, just to be totally transparent for me, it's just like, I'm pulling out this giant, like, not, and it's not giant, but it's just like a gaming thing.
It's big
And
enough.
maybe what I
It's a
think is
good
maybe
seven.
I'm not their target, like, you know what I mean? Because I do, I game, right? And me and my kids game and all these other things, my friends game. So yeah, honestly, I think, it's just like the whole, just if you're whipping out something like that in public, it's just kind of wild. Like, and I
Nah,
don't
I get
knock it.
it.
I don't knock it at all. Like and maybe it is, I say it now and I just have to kind of get used to like doing that and it being more common because
Well, I agree, right? Like take it out in public, but I think as far as let's say for us, me and you, our use cases, my main use case, if I were to use it out in public, I'd be traveling on a plane or some public transportation, like train, plane, bus, if that's the case, right? Outside of that, I don't really have much time to be playing it when I'm, out on open. Like I may sit down. I mean, if I'm at home, obviously I might want to pull something on the TV and play the real Xbox, right? So I get it, but I do like the experience for that. However, obviously we may not be the target audience, but who knows? There might be those gaming cafes people might go to. Might not be us, but I know there's people our age who still do stuff like that.
I mean, they do. I mean, the fact that we game, right? So I guess there's just like these different levels to it, right? Because I've been gaming since day one, right? So there's no problem with that. But yeah, just in public, like there's a lot to cover as we get these devices and start to kind of utilize those. We'll definitely, report back. And I'm sure you've seen all over the interwebs. I mean, a lot of people have those. So definitely let us know in the comments, like your main use cases and how you guys like those devices.
Also, not only that, but let us know like now that there's new handhelds coming out. We have the ROG Ally from Microsoft, and also we have the Nintendo Switch 2 that was announced as well. Like these are two gaming systems that's coming out in the midst of the AI takeover that's happening in technology right now, which they are going to, I would assume, utilize and have updates that it's going to enhance. There's probably going to be some AI gaming moments, right? We've talked about that, DJ, and seeing how that it can really transpire with new hardware coming out is going to be pretty cool. So let us know your thoughts on both of those systems if you plan on getting one or the other and what your use cases would be, right? We want to know.
Yeah, and also how you guys compare those to other devices like Steam Deck or any of those, because there's a few of them out there in the market now. And RG, they have another set, the RG Ally, just non-X ones. And I think this is just a start. It sounds like Xbox. Remember, they're on this big push right now that everything's an Xbox. So I think we're going to see more hardware devices come out from different manufacturers. So it'll be interesting how that plays out. So we shall see. And last but not least, Timbaland's new artist. And as reported here by Rolling Stone, their headline of it is his new artist is young, photogenic, and not human. And I can tell you, man, the socials went kind of wild for a little bit. There was this mixed feelings, a lot of mixed feelings. People were super passionate because I think they say, when AI, is really leaning into creatives, into the creative space, right? So now artistry and it's already been in the images. Like, so I think music artists are feeling what digital creators or digital artists, started feeling when in 2022, when Midjourney and all these other things started to kind of really unfold and get out there in the market. So what's your take on it personally? Like, what do you feel about the AI artist, Tata?
Honestly, I don't know how to feel. It's one of those things where it's a very fine line of like, all right, like if y'all were to listen to probably the music or the song, like, okay, cool, this is produced by Timbaland, but how does that work, right? But it gives me this thing, like, okay, let's say the music is really, really good, but now what does that look like? How do we go to those concerts? How does that artist, actually make money for Timberland? You know what I mean? So I think in concept, in theory, it seems cool, but in reality, I don't know how it works. I know, I mean, I get all the other AI stuff that we do and the spaces that creators are in. I get how the AI can make the music, but from a music industry perspective of assigning artists and how that industry works is very, very different, even with songs and royalties and all that. So this one to me is a little bit of a huh. Very interesting. I want to see how it plays out, though.
So apparently it's like a collaboration though. So it's not just like it's like, so there's still human in the loop, if you will, but there's still like a human like so Timbaland, I'm sure his team will still be involved in like the production and really giving it that like professional sound and quality and all that. But the way that they market, that's what I'm going to be interested in seeing because there are already like AI social influencers, right? Like on TikTok and all the socials, right? There's these social influencers that have hundreds of thousands, millions of followers, right? They go through and some of them were like deep fakes where like it would be a real person and they would put like a an image over themselves or whatever and represent like an avatar or something like that. But now like they have full stop like just straight up AI, I guess avatars, if you will, for lack of a better word. But they just have like a full stop individual. So for me it's like, how would you go, like traditionally an artist goes to like radio stations to promote their work. They do all of these things and like how's that really going to happen, so this will be
But
interesting.
even so, I will say this for the music industry, the way an artist makes money, like once they get signed, they get, advances, right? The way the artist makes money or makes money back, they have to do appearances, at clubs, shows, they have to do concerts, like they have to do those radio station visits, right? So obviously, I know it's not about making the money, it's more about the music, but it's like, how do you promote this artist when there's not someone
What
tangible
the
to see?
Halley? What the Halley? I mean, that's what I keep thinking, man. It's just like, you're right. I mean, those are all solid questions because honestly, if you think like everything you mentioned before, concerts and just all the traditional things, right? I mean, you won't have that like actual kinetic thing, and it is about the music. And I mean, imagine this, Deuce. They could pump out, 100 songs in a day, right? Like it just like because the speed that you can move when you don't have weight necessarily. Like I don't know. I know there's still some creativity that's mixed in there, and maybe not 100 songs a day or whatever, but it just like I just think it's gonna be a lot.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how like a fan base gets built. Because I mean, I get how fans can be surrounded by a lot of things, like, but it's like I don't know, man. This one to me, I'm interested to see how it's going to shake out for real. I don't think it's terrible, but it's just that industry is going to be to me, from what I understand about the music industry, is going to be a little bit interesting to see how it shakes. But Timberland, on the flip side, Timberland being the musical genius that he is, I think he's taking a great step as far as in the innovation direction for the music industry. And I think that, he obviously didn't do this lightly, right? I'm sure he has a team around him. He took this into consideration and honestly is, accepting the new wave of technology and innovation for music. And his hits are timeless. His beats, everything, timeless.
Yeah,
So
man. Timbaland's definitely one of my favorite producers. I mean, like when I DJ, man, a lot of Timbaland is in my, in my music playlist for sure. I mean, so and he's well respected. I mean, he's been doing it for a long time. So I think that's what led to some of the passion behind it because some people were just like, man, like you're turning your back on the artist. And reported by the Vice, he, mentioned as it shows here, at one point I thought to myself, how could a multi-Grammy winning producer actually feel that way? Like, how could he feel the music is like soulless now? Essentially, is what they're reporting that Timbaland said. And like, like if that's the case, like if he feels like it's soulless, is it still soulless when it's AI? Even if it's in collaboration with a human, he's saying essentially they're going to create new genres, now. So basically, they can just do new things with music. So I think that's where he's claiming that inspiration to be from. But I guess we'll definitely have to see, man.
it'd be interesting, like I said, just to see how that shakes out. Like, let us know, what do you guys think about that? Like, are you guys going to listen to an AI artist? Would you? Like, would you know? Like, if there was a song out right now that was hot, and you're like, man, this is all right. Look, all right, this is kind of nice, and then you find out later that the artist is AI. How would you feel, right? Look, DJ, if the song gets big enough, you gonna play that in your DJ set?
I mean, if it's a hit, that's the thing of a DJ, right? I mean, and the thing that keeps DJs from running is just like it's always something new, and you never know what's going to be a hit. I mean, like at one point, what was that song? I can't. It was like a country song from Little Nas X that just had the
Oh
whole nation
yeah,
in the chokehold for a while, right?
yeah,
Like
Choco, it did. I remember. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to,
But
I'm
it
not gonna
had
hum the
everyone
tune
in
because of
choco.
copyright. But yeah, it had
because
everybody in a chokehold, right? And so like
even the country people
imaginary,
were like, he's not a
yeah,
country artist.
exactly. So you
Yeah.
never know really what's gonna be, hot. And then imagine you going somewhere and you don't have that song in your set because you're just like, nah, I'm not gonna play that. Like, nah, that's not how, you're there to serve basically your audience. So you want to make sure they have that. So I mean, I would, but I think from an artist perspective. So yeah, if there's any of you artists that are kind of out there, music artists, like how do you feel? Like, is it cool to collaborate with AI, or do you feel like it's kind of going away from tradition? Maybe they'll have their own lane. Because also, Deuce, we got to think about awards. Like, can the AI win an award? Should they have their own segment now as it's going forward, or is this going to be like something that is up for grabs for anyone? And I think really it sets the stage for this streaming generation because now, man, you could just I would imagine once it gets good enough to a point, like you could release songs very often in comparison to what we've been able to produce like and release before. So I'm just interested in seeing is it going to get too oversaturated?
No, I think if artists now are going to start implementing some AI parts to their songs or music, right? Like I know some friends who are artists. I have some friends who are artists. Like, would they, hey, maybe I need somebody to do a verse or do a couple bars on my song, but I can't pay an artist right now for, you know, their time. And maybe I get some generate, I can generate my own, artists real quick. Like I wonder if people will start using that to fill in some of the gaps, especially, young artists is getting started. That there's some opportunity in that. And I wonder if, this artist with Tata will open the doors for stuff like that. So I think it has some upside, potential upside, right?
I
But
just think it
who
jumps straight
knows?
to the artist. It'd be one thing is like because I know dealing with music my whole life, like maybe learning how to produce, right? Like I know there's Suno and there's other platforms where they can make music, but then there's I don't know, like being able to kind of hum a song or sing a song and having the AI kind of take that and kind of go with that and making a beat around that and doing different things. Like you would think maybe they could do something like that, but yeah, we'll see how it unfolds, man.
Look, all in all, I think it's something interesting. You guys let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you would use or listen, or subscribe to any of those things with the artists and going to a show, buying an album, listen to the single. So I guess also Tata's new single is coming out soon, pretty soon, right? So yeah, let us know your thoughts. Will you keep an eye out for it? We will try to link that on our on our on this episode. But always, you guys, we're here for you guys. So like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let us know your thoughts. And DJ, what else you got?
Done, man. We'll talk to y'all on the next one. Definitely like, share, and subscribe. And definitely feel in the comments. Let us know what you think about all the things because man, it's been a very hectic week.
All right, peace.
Peace.